Hello and welcome to season 2 of the NGO Whisperer Show. My name is Carolyne Opinde. I am the founder of the NGO Whisperer. We are a consulting business that helps nonprofits raise funds so they can successfully impact people's lives. Joining us today from Port Louis in Mauritius is a former head of state, Her Excellency Dr. Ameenah Gurib-Fakim. She is a scientist, an academician, an entrepreneur, and a well-respected, impact-focused leader, not only in Africa, but around the world. Your Excellency, Dr. Ameenah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Caroline. It's a pleasure. And I look forward to chatting with you.
Thank you so much. We are honored today. It is such a privilege, first and foremost, to have a woman in Africa also who has been a former head of state, sharing with us her wisdom and her insight on our topic today, which is creating a new norm for women and girls, not only in Africa, but around the world. Your Excellency, Dr. Ameenah, as we get into our topic today, we live in a male-dominated society in terms of socio-economic empowerment, and many people speak about women and girls' empowerment, but fail to address local gender power relationships that exist in our patriarchal, not just society, but really the world. What is the definition of empowerment of women and girls?
Thank you, Caroline. I think, first of all, we have to kind of draw the attention to the world that Africa has had 5 female heads of states, right? And if you go to continent-wise, you find that Asia has done also quite well. The ones which are lagging behind would be Europe, where there are very few, and the Americas, where again, there have been very, very few women heads of state. Having said this, we need more women. We need more women in leadership position, but we need more women in power. And here I make the difference between leadership and power. Women who are in the companies, women who are in a chief executive, they are all in leadership position. But we need women in power, because it's only when we have women in power that we can make a difference in terms of changing the laws, because the laws have to work for women. Unfortunately, we don't see these changes. And this year we are celebrating 25 years of Beijing. We had the first conference of women in Beijing. And we find that some of the hard-earned gains that we have made, they are gradually eroding. And they are eroding fast, even now during the COVID pandemic. So whatever we have earned, we need to be able to consolidate and not have it eroded. We need to get more women on board. We need to change the laws. We need them to be there. And one thing I will also point out is that we need women to take other women by the hand. And here we need to take girls by the hand. And we need also to bring the message home to women that when a woman is high up there, we need to ensure that we make her stay there. Unfortunately, Caroline, women are women worse than this. And this is something that we have to say, and I will say it loud again, because when I see a woman up in a certain position of power, I want her to stay there, because by her staying there, she will cast a light and she will be the role model to that little girl growing up in a village like myself when I was growing up, to know that it is possible, to know that to reach the highest position on this in a country, it's possible to do it by dint of hard work and everything that goes with it. So this is the messaging that I have vis-a-vis other women. Let us work as a community of women to ensure that we encourage more women to be there. And interestingly, Caroline, we tend to say that women need to break the glass ceiling. My question is, do we really have a glass ceiling?
That is a big question. That is a big question. And I asked you that question before. How did you break the glass ceiling to get to where you are?
Well, is there a glass ceiling in the first instance? I made people laugh in the past by saying, there is no glass ceiling. You know what there is? There is a very thick pile of men out there. And they tend to elbow women out. They tend to elbow women out for many reasons. Because we live in a patriarchal society, and all the layers of culture, religion, prejudice, all these get in the way when it comes to letting a woman get up there. But as I said before, we need more women to be out there. We need them. And, it makes good economic sense. I mean, I'm not the one who is saying it. In fact, work has been done by institutions like the IMF. And they have said bringing women on board makes good economic sense because the economy thrives. Women have a special way of doing things. Women bring in a new narrative, and women bring in new leadership. In fact, what we have seen over the past few weeks during the COVID pandemic, we have seen those countries that had women at leadership and political position, power position. These are the countries that have done so well in terms of stopping and, of course, containing the pandemic. Absolutely. So women have a different way of leading, and this is where we need to create a space for that girl and for that woman to be able to thrive so that we see a new narrative emerging.
As a former head of state, you experienced so many things, but one of the things that I would like us to focus on is what barriers do you think hinders African states from achieving women and girls empowerment in our society today?
Caroline, it starts at a very early age, right? It starts at home. It starts with a family. It starts from the moment that girl is growing up in the family, when she gets told that the daily chores are hers and not her brother's. It starts at school, when she goes to school and she gets told, no, you can't do sciences. Science is for boys. She gets pushed around and she gets shoved into that space of the soft sciences. She gets told that she can't do maths, she can't do engineering, because this is for boys. And this is something that I experienced when I was a girl studying chemistry. I was passionate about chemistry. I wanted to do it. I did it very well at school. But you know what? When I went to the career guidance officer after my A-levels, he told me, why do you want to do science? That's for boys. I would advise you not to do it because when you come back home, there'll be no job for you. But again, where it is important to have a supportive family, a supportive father, he gave me choices. So I discussed with him. I said to him, what do you think? He said to me that I shouldn't be doing science. Then he said to me, what do you want to do? I say, I want to do science. So I went ahead and I followed my heart and I did something I really enjoyed. Now, to come back to that narrative of girls, science, girls in school, we as leaders and we as government and we as a community, we have the responsibility to encourage that girl, to build her self-confidence, to tell her that she's capable of doing anything. And in fact, when she's literally, given all the opportunities, that girl, with the right confidence, with the right approach, she can do miracles. And one thing I always say to girls as well, always enjoy what you do. Because when you enjoy what you do, you will not have to work because you become passionate about what you do and you're going to do it well. So that's the first thing. Now, when she goes to school now, she will be confronted with textbooks where there are so many stereotypes, right? I was very surprised 2 years ago. I actually participated in a panel and we had all these girls in front of us and we're asking them, give us the name of some iconic women scientists. And Caroline, you'd be very surprised that many of them did not even know that Marie Curie existed.
Wow. Wow.
So this is, to me, she has been my role model all along. Can you imagine in the 1900s, working in a lab where, in the same country, in the same institutions, where she was denied a post an academic post because she was a woman, and that woman earning 2 Nobel Prizes. How iconic can that be? You can still imagine her with a dark dress wandering in that lab in Paris. So this is what we have to bring on board in our school books, how iconic women can be and how they have done it, why they have done it, and what they have achieved. So we have to sing the praises of these women. So we have to remove the stereotype. And another thing that I always say to African leaders, build the infrastructure so that that little girl or that young girl will not be absent from school 1 week per month.
Mm-hmm.
So she needs to have the infrastructure there. So up until we actually bring in the infrastructure, and this only comes with the institution, with the government. And one thing as well, in Africa, we do not need to promote rote learning. We need to encourage that girl to start doing things with her hands. Because nowadays we have Google, we have all the computers, the databases are there. That girl, or that boy for that matter, doesn't need to learn anything by heart. They have to learn by doing. They have to discover things. They have to touch things. They have to taste things. They have to smell things. It's only then that they will appreciate the environment around them. It's only then that they will understand the power, the transformative power of science.
Right.
And how this is something that we need so much on the continent of Africa. If we look at the SDGs, for the first time in UN history, the UN has recognized the central role of science in the delivery of the SDGs. Each one of these SDGs, they are a system. And if we deliver on each one of them, we're going to have a very prosperous continent.
Your Excellency, Dr. Ameenah, we have talked about empowerment of women, about helping women take on leadership roles in the society, the community around the world. We have looked at the barriers that hinder women from achieving this level of empowerment or feeling empowered. The next question that I would like to ask is something I always wondered to myself. Do I need to be told, Caroline, now you are empowered, for me to feel empowered? Or is it a thought, something that was cultivated in my upbringing, for me to hear and to see other women talking about we need to be empowered, we need to be empowered? And I always question this because just like you, Your Excellency, I studied mathematics and chemistry. And what I noticed in my class, there were very few students at the University of Nairobi, where I studied mathematics and chemistry. There were very few of us ladies who pursued mathematics to the 4th year, where we graduated with Bachelors of Science in Mathematics. And some of them majored in mathematics, some of them in chemistry. And what you said struck a chord with me, because when I was making a decision to study mathematics, I had the option of studying something else or mathematics. And the person who encouraged me so much was one of my sisters, who happened to be my English teacher in high school. And I told her, I feel this is the direction I should take. And she told me, I know people might wonder, what will you do with mathematics and chemistry in Kenya? There's no specific job for someone doing Bachelor of Science, mathematics and chemistry. You can either focus on doing one of those and be a specialist. But I said, I feel doing both would be something that I want to do. And she encouraged me and she said, you know, if that is what you're passionate about, go for it. And as I went through the years at my university, and in the third year, I came across this HIV and AIDS program. And that's how I ended up in the nonprofit sector. So someone might wonder, you studied mathematics, but now you are in the nonprofit sector. What I found out, Your Excellency, is I'm still using the mathematics and the chemistry that I learned in my work, in the sense that within the nonprofit sector, there is monitoring and evaluation, which is purely using statistics to measure impact. And I was able to use what I learned practically in that. And now, as you mentioned, women supporting other women to go up the ladder, I have a personal experience, and I just felt that I should share it to with our viewers so they can understand it. Now, back to my question and my thoughts that I've had previously, talking to so many women and also engaging with the NGO Whisperer clients is, and I would like your honest opinion on this. Who told women that they are not empowered?
Again, this issue of getting women empowered has become so much of a rhetoric. What do we understand by this? Just like your story, I had an identical story. I've had a passion for chemistry. I went to do a BSc in chemistry, precisely in the UK as well. And I had no idea what I would do with that chemistry. And I think what the sciences do to you, do to somebody, is that it makes you think differently. It's a very Cartesian way of training where you develop a certain way of analyzing things, of doing things. So this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be good at what I was doing. And to me, that's already a form of empowerment because you're already driving a certain form of excellence. So I was driven to do well in whatever I was doing. I had no idea what career choices I would have. Then I went to do a PhD in chemistry, again, following my heart. And when I came back to Mauritius, I realized very quickly that the chemistry I was doing and the way I was doing that chemistry was no longer doable in Mauritius because the infrastructure wasn't there. And this is when I went towards studying the chemistry of plants, because there we are in a biodiversity hotspot. I could contribute to the body of knowledge because by studying unique plants, the chances of you discovering new things, of course, the chances were higher. So this is how I thought laterally. I applied the training I received into one area of science into another area where it mattered and where I could make a difference. So going for excellence knows no gender. Going for excellence is the only way, and this is how you become empowered, because you're passionate, you can reason things out, and you can start doing novel things. You can start bringing innovation to what you're doing. And I started working in a field, and I can safely say, because you're from Nairobi, you know what the value of traditional knowledge is, the value of herbal medicine is.
Yes.
So I stood on the shoulders of these aunties, these grannies who shared the knowledge with me. And with the knowledge they gave me, I studied the sciences, I studied chemistry, I studied biology, I studied pharmacology, and I could make sense of what they were trying to tell me. And with that knowledge that they gave, I published books. I created the very first database of herbal medicine out in Mauritius, and of course in the surrounding region. And that has been the area that has shaped my career. So by starting with chemistry, so for me, the real empowerment is to know what you want out of life, is to know what career choices you can make. And that career choices can only come when you develop within, of course, as you grow up, the notion that you will go for excellence. And as I said again, I will say it again, excellence knows no gender. When you are publishing a paper, you study it outside, they will not know whether the gender is right or the gender is wrong, whatever way you want to look at it. They will approve or accept your paper by virtue of the quality of that work. So always go for excellence, and that's the only way one can really get empowered. And when you actually get accepted into the community of scientists, your self-confidence will improve. And of course, who says getting more self-confidence means daring and doing things in a different way. And that to me is true empowerment, is to have that self-confidence to be able to create your own path as opposed to going down the beaten track.
Thank you so much for those words of wisdom. Excellence knows no gender. And once you have followed your passion, every woman, every girl out there, just like men and boys in the society, you will be respected in your field because of the excellence that you bring to the table. Now, going back to your role as a former president of the nation of Mauritius, as one of the few female former presidents who have held that role around the world, share with us how it felt to be in room with many head of states as a woman. Did it ever occur to you, or did you ever become conscious that here I am, a woman in the room heading a country amongst all other men and a few women, others who are there in the room? I'm just curious to know what your thoughts were every time when there were meetings of head of states.
Thank you, Caroline. I think, you know, the notion of you being a woman, it does not really matter at that level, because if you're a scientist, I've had to cope with being sometimes one of the very few women in the room when you're having a conference, when you're going to meetings, because there's so few women scientists, for example. And so the notion of me being a woman in that room really didn't matter. But having said this, it was a huge privilege to serve my country. And as I said, I made history by being the first female president of my country, and also the first female Muslim president for the entire African continent. So already, I think these are fairly important milestones actually to highlight. But no, it didn't occur to me, because to me, when you are in that room with other fellow heads of states or heads of government, the idea is what are we trying to push in terms of agenda, in terms of deliberations? How are we going to empower other people on the continent? How are we going to change livelihoods, for example? I mean, these are matters that were on the table, were being discussed, and people just listened to you at that time because you were occupying the chair you were occupying. But I was also very conscious all the time that I was one of the few women out there. And I was sometime among the youngest as well in the room. So that maybe dawned on me. But when the discussions start, these become secondary issues.
Wow. It is indeed encouraging and very motivating for women, especially myself, you know, listening to you now, to know that when you are going out there, really, it doesn't matter whether you are a woman or not, boy, girl, what you're bringing to the table is what counts. And this is also going back to the mindset that we bring with ourselves and our emotional intelligence as we walk into these roles and sit at the table and take space, as Zozibini Tunzi, Miss Universe, who is from South Africa, said. As a former head of state, again, looking at what the AU has as an agenda for African countries. Are there specific policies that need to be changed to ensure that Africa believes in itself, or believes in herself and thrives in situations such as this?
You know, the COVID-19 has, in fact, revealed and amplified the state of our institutions, especially the health sector. And I think when the AU actually elaborated Agenda 2063, the idea is the Agenda 2063 is to see a prosperous Africa emerging. A prosperous Africa emerging through her human capital, through her own resources, through boys and girls who are going to shape that continent. Now, to come back to COVID-19, we have seen the level of preparedness or unpreparedness of many of our institutions. right? And if you take one by one, if you take out the health sector, we have seen that in some countries, in many countries, the basic health service is not there, right? So how are we going to counteract, COVID-19 or other any diseases for that matter? Because mind you, we've had one pandemic, but it's not the end of the day. We're going to get many more by virtue of climate change and all the rest of it. So it's already showing us that we have to work very hard. We have to invest massively into primary healthcare, public healthcare, because that's the basic. We're not talking about private, we are talking about high tech, we're talking about basic healthcare. If you look at Ebola a few years ago, Ebola could have been averted if only people had soap and water to wash their hands properly, right? So this is one thing, the public health space, the health sector. The other sector we have to look at is our education. Now, Caroline, for too long, we have kind of interiorized that educating our young people is the duty of someone else. It's not. It's our duty to educate our people. And whenever we're going to put dollar money into the education system, it's an investment we are bringing in. And when we invest in our own people, we'll create our own institution. We actually train our own people. And we will be generating data and knowledge which are important to shape our own policies. And it's only then that we will be able to actually ensure food security through agriculture. We're going to ensure water security through tapping the resources on the continent. Africa is the blue continent. We need to be able to tap the resources from there. Resources, we have seen the minerals. There is plenty across the African continent. But how do we make these resources work for ourselves? Why is it that Africa always has to export raw material? We need to transform that on the continent. And we, of course, will need trained human capital, boys and girls together. So we need to be able to do all this, transform. It's only through manufacturing that we actually generate more innovation. It's only through creating the appropriate ecosystem, by giving the girls and the boys the tool of science, that we will be able to retain the brains, the best brain of Africa on our soil. Otherwise, we will be having this conversation 25 years down the line, and we will be talking about the same thing again. So it is our responsibility to educate, to keep our young people healthy, to provide the opportunities, to create the ecosystem that these boys and girls will choose Africa as opposed to emigrating elsewhere. And this is again something that we will be able to leverage technology, because we have a youth, an African continent which is getting younger. The young people are there to be able to use technology for the advancement of our continent. And one thing as well I will also say is that we need to develop the pride of being African.
Wow.
Everything that we do, everything that we wear, we should proudly say it's made in Africa. It's made by Africans. It's made from our own resources. So be proud to be African. And that's already one step forward.
You are also an entrepreneur. My question to you is, what does it take for one to be such a dynamic leader in the society?
Well, Caroline, I told you, I've never worked in my life. I have been passionate about what I do because my work has become my hobby. And this is something I teach my children. Make your work become your hobby. You will do very good, and you'll be just, tinkering along and doing things that you enjoy. But there's something that I just wanted to highlight. Why it matters, why it's important to become an entrepreneur. Because, African youth have to appreciate that there's going to be 11 to 12 million graduates landing on the job market on the continent every year. And there's no way any government can be able to catch up and create jobs. We have to tell them, and I tried to do that at some point, I did it as well, is that I did my best to become a job creator and not a job seeker. And it's possible nowadays. It's possible to become a job creator, and the notion of entrepreneurship is so, so important. Now, why is it again important to actually take academic research and translate that into a business, which I did? And it is because this is a space that is lacking in our tertiary system, is that space of science park, of incubators, where young people can take the ideas and try it there. And this is where we need to rethink the way we have been providing the support to young people. And this is where, again, government need to invest. It's only when these kids feel secure enough to have that safety net that they will become innovative. And being an entrepreneur is so important because you can then translate whatever idea there, create jobs, and bring in innovation. Unfortunately, you know, on the continent, we generate only about 1 to 2% of the world's data and world's information. And that's not enough. It is far from enough. And we have the talent, we have the resources, we should make it work. But the policy shaping these institutions, the policy shaping these new areas have to be there. And this is where I have given myself this task of promoting that kind of mindset among other heads of state and of course heads of government institution, that we need to shape that policy so that that young kid can become confident enough to start being an entrepreneur, because it's a risk well worth taking. It's a calculated risk, but something, again, we have to tell young kids that they need to start taking risks. I took 3 risks in my life. The first risk I took, I got married. The second risk I took when I decided to leave my comfort zone of academia and went to become an entrepreneur. The third risk I took is when I threw my hat in the political world as well. So learn to take risks, calculated risks nonetheless, but learn to take risks. Otherwise, life becomes very boring.
Wow, what a beautiful end to this conversation. Creating a new norm for women and girls, not just in Africa, but around the world. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. Now, before you go, I'd like to give you a moment to share with every woman who is in a position to encourage them to bring others with them as they're going up the ladder.
So my messaging, in fact, this is something I am doing more and more, is to learn to take a girl by the hand. We need to increase the number of women going through the pipe, because we are always going through the leaky pipe syndrome. We are always losing so many talented women all along the way. So try to increase the number of women going through the pipe so we have more coming out on the other side. And keep up doing the good work that you're doing by showcasing all these women on the cover page of your magazine, because we need to showcase those who are doing well so that they become role model, and girls and women will have somebody to look up to say, yes, it's possible and I can do it. And you're showing very beautiful pictures of women, so the women have to say to themselves, we are beautiful, we are capable, and we can do it, and nothing can stop us. And when we are together as a community of women, we will all rise together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Dr. Ameenah. From all of us here at the NGO Whisperer, we are truly honored to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, and all the very best.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of this episode, we encourage you to subscribe to the NGO Whisperer channel on YouTube, sign up for the NGO Whisperer magazine, and get in touch with us so we can help you to continue to impact lives of women and girls, and of course, boys and men as well around the world, because it's all about connecting people, raising funds, and impacting lives globally.